I want to start out first by just giving a little kind of explanation, backstory about why we're here. I have what you would call a pretty complicated orthopedic history. I don't want to go into all the detail, but I've had 17 surgeries on my joints. Really long story. There's a lot of causes. There's genetics. There's my personality. I'm stubborn. Come from a small town. Didn't have a lot of information. Things like that. But as you can imagine, I've done and seen a lot of things. I've had surgeries a lot of you probably have never heard of, and I hope you never hear of. Tried procedures, modalities. I've had stem cell injections. I've had all kinds of things. And when I look back on it, I learned a lot, and at the end of it all, I said to myself, I wish everyone else knew this, or I wish I knew that then. And so I wanted to pick some people in my past that if I had known them when I was 16 before this all happened, what would have changed? Because I don't want anyone else. I'm not saying any of you are going to happen. This won't happen to everyone. I'm like a 0.001% kind of case, but there's a lot of things that could be prevented. So I actually ran into Gray's work actually after the 17 surgeries. I had all this surgery, and my body was just not moving well. I had all this cartilage put back in my body, but still in pain. And hearing about his work and how he explains movement, all these things, one thing I want to share with you is this is stuff that all of us should know in high school, grade school. This should be our health class. These are the things we should know to make decisions, healthcare decisions. There's no reason why only a physical therapist or an elite trainer should know some of the stuff that Gray's going to talk about today. So that's why I invited Gray here, and I've seen Gray talk to fitness professionals, medical professionals, those people, but there's no reason why he can't talk to the rest of us. This is all stuff we should know to help us make decisions. So I don't want to steal any more of Gray's time. He's a physical therapist, strength coach, works with elite athletes, works with the military. There's a ton of things I can say. He's written 2 books. Movement, I recommend everyone really read that one. That's my favorite of the 2. They're both great, though. But without further ado, Gray Cook.
Thank you. I'm excited to do this because it's really easy to lecture to a group of your peers because you can drop terms and terminology and systems that everybody's supposed to know. But when I got invited to do this, and some of the conversations I had with Steve preparing for it, he alluded to the fact that when he looked at our systematic way we look at human movement, it just looks like a good engineering approach. And that's probably because he's heard me make analogies like the human movement information system and other information processing have many common problems. One of the first ways I talk to patients or athletes is this the hardware or software problem? Sometimes your structure, the structure of your body, is the reason you can't get that next thing out of movement. And sometimes it's the function, it's the processing. It's real easy in healthcare for us to just look at you as a bag of parts. Your name isn't X, it's knee. You're the knee in room 3, right? And as long as we do what we got to do for the knee, then yeah, you're taking some anti-inflammatories, but we upset your stomach. Oh, now you're a GI problem. Oh, we're going to get you over somewhere else. And many of the things we do, I'll be honest with you, are to cover up your symptoms so you'll leave us alone, not to make you more independent and make that independence sustainable. You graduate from high school, you can read and write letters, enough to get through the rest of your life or go to college or do something else. And you can do the same thing with numbers, just enough hopefully to stay out of debt if you know how to work the numbers. But most of us graduate high school not knowing how to read, write, or correct faulty movement patterns. I would suggest that many of you can correct your movement patterns just by changing your lifestyle, not by adopting new exercise practices. Your lifestyle could be compounding that. But unless we have systems and filters that point us right to where the problem is, you're just going to meet a bunch of people with a hammer. And guess what happens when you got a hammer? Everything looks like a nail. So you just look like a nail to them, okay? If they have a screwdriver, and so on, okay? So there's many, many things that I can talk about the way the human brain operates this sensory apparatus. Because most people look at the body as muscles and joints to move us from place to place. There's only two things we do with our body: locomotion and manipulation. We tweedle with stuff and interact with our environment, or we move from space to space. Everything in your brain is set up almost to do that, because unless you can engage your environment, whether that environment is very social with a lot of other people, or it's absolutely natural with rocks and sticks and avalanches and snakes and stuff like that, either way, you got to pick up that information. How do you pick up that information? Data points or patterns? Because the human movement learning system does some things that we still can't do with software yet, okay? We've got computers that got pretty good at chess. They still can't throw a curveball. We don't know the algorithms to do that. And the minute it knows how to throw a curveball, it can't switch up and throw something else. It becomes a highly specialized robot throwing curveballs, all right? So what we do on the front end of movement is perception. And when we teach you an exercise, or teach you how to be an athlete, or teach you how to do your next new sport you just watched on YouTube, we focus on the behavior. What's the best way to change behavior? Change perception. If I change your perception of something's going on, the natural driving force, the same driving force that makes every kid learn to walk on their own, we don't use personal trainers or physical therapists for that. Kids learn to walk on their own. And when you think about going from a blob that can't even roll over to running in 2 years, going from where you are now to an Olympic gold medal does not have as much processing in your brain as that does, going from the blob to the running thing. No help at all. I need you to be thinking of that, because there is a distinct difference in what we would do, say, with code or software, and the way we've got to program this. And I hope I can tell you the story of how that works. And at the end, if I stay on time, I'd like to show you a real-time example of what that means. We don't write movement code. So thinking that we can change it is not really honoring the code. We're just hacking in. Oh, I can get your core to fire. I can get your ankle to move. Oh, I can get your cardio up. All we're doing is hacking a code that maybe we don't particularly appreciate, because almost every time we do something in fitness to make you better, damn if we don't make 3 mistakes. If we go back 50 years in our history, the people that used to exercise in this country on a regular basis seemed healthier and more fit than the people who didn't. That's not the same anymore. The people who exercise regularly right now in our culture are more fit than people that don't, but they're not more healthy. They actually have more musculoskeletal issues than people who choose not to express themselves physically 3 times a week in a package of exercise. Exercise is a friggin' risk factor now for health, not fitness. Exercise will allow you to do more of what you want to do. Just keep doing more of it, and you'll do more of it until you blow up. But is it really making you healthier when 80% of the runners in a given year will not be able to run, and they want to run, but they can't? They created a health issue trying to be fit. Don't put your fitness on a movement dysfunction, and you won't have to see that. I think we need to learn to read movement code better first. And if we can read that code better, I think there are a lot of brains in the world that just have a slight paradigm shift. Don't look at me as a bag of parts. Don't tell me that structure always governs function, because it doesn't. Structure has a big influence on function. But let me ask you a question. Does a right-handed tennis player have twice the bone density in this forearm because they were born that way and it's a good thing they played tennis on this side? Or did the act of squeezing the crap out of that tennis racket at impact create more compressive forces on the bone, which put in action a thing called Wolff's Law that adds greater bone density anytime we're going to need greater stress. You don't just get bigger muscles when you work out, your bone density goes up. So a lot of times function governs structure. When kids start throwing really early in their life, overhand, they remodel their entire shoulder mechanics. And I can see when you're 35 years old and haven't picked up a baseball in 20 years, that you threw a lot when you were a kid just by the signature that it left on you. We have a little saying in the clinic when an athlete comes through and they've run themselves right into the ground. Running's left a bigger mark on you than you left on running. It was supposed to, you embarked on this journey to leave a mark on running, and it left a mark on you that's probably going to be here for a few months. Let's see if we can go back and resume the activity with integrity so you can achieve independence and you can sustain that as long as possible. All right, I'm not an engineer, and I'm a redneck with dyslexia. So I was challenged in every academic endeavor I ever approached because I couldn't memorize things that I couldn't put in a pattern or a sequence that made sense to me. But once I could, I didn't have to remember it. Now, I also happen to be pretty good in art. A lot of people thought I took art all the way through high school to keep my GPA up just enough to play football, and that also was true. But when I got to University of Miami, I realized that most of my peers were taking volumes and volumes of notes in anatomy, gross anatomy. We spent our whole summer on gross anatomy because to be a physical therapist, you got to be able to really interact and almost name every muscle in the body, okay? The MDs looked at muscles in groups. We looked at the organs in groups, but we looked at the muscles individually. I drew pictures, and it helped me because I could close my eyes and then rotate that picture in my head, and it helped me start to develop an appreciation for movement. I didn't really fit the academic model, but it really helped me having, I guess, the dyslexia, but also maybe a little bit of photographic memory, because as soon as I could see a pattern, I could see when it would deviate from norm enough where it would actually change itself. So that's sort of what got me here. And if I can find a pattern, I think I can interact. I think I can see some things. And if I can't find a pattern, a lot of times I won't comment on it. It gave me an advantage against some of my obstacles, and I never forgot some of the things I learned in physical therapy school because over here we're learning about the neurological system. And I tell you what, if a family member in your lifetime has a stroke, a CVA, a cerebral vascular accident, we don't put them on weight machines and we don't put them on a treadmill. If they lose their ability to walk with nice fluid stride, that recognizable stride that's been part of their movement signature all their life, and all of a sudden you see your mom or dad dragging a foot, it's going to hit you pretty hard. They come to our clinic. They don't walk in parallel bars. They don't walk on a treadmill. They got to get down on the ground and go through operating system 101. Why? Because the first time they learned to walk, they had to crawl first. It is not me trying to make them humble or humiliate them. If they fall in Walmart, they're going to have a lot worse time. I'm going to confront every fear you got right here, and we're going to engage that natural operating system because the part of a stroke that most people don't realize is part of your brain died. But another part of your brain within a window is willing to uptake that information and actually remodel your walking platform. But if we focus too much on your walking and not enough on what got you there, we'll never get there. If we make your walking about just strengthening that toe so you don't drag it, we are dishonoring the operating system that made you walk the first time. And that's the big problem we got. So I've been a physical therapist. I was a strength coach. I was very, very much into orthopedics, and I was trying to get my board certification, specialize, and change the world my own little way. And then I was brought to my knees humbly by that first little girl right there, Jessica. One reason is she had colic, therefore by default I got insomnia, right? So we spent a lot of time, about 3 a.m, just sort of looking at each other saying, what am I going to do with you? And she's like, well, I don't know, what am I going to do with you? And I watched her teach herself how to walk the very first time, and I offered nothing but a safe environment, right? Get your scissors off the floor, get the sharp corners out of there. And she did it. She pulled it off. And the funny thing is, when we watch, as physical therapists, the child go from barely crawling and rolling to running, As long as a child meets their developmental milestones, meaning they hit crawling by here, there's a window. As long as they make that window, we don't measure how much their ankles move or how strong their biceps are. Make your window, all right? When they don't make the window, that's when we go in and look and see what can we do to add that more sensory input. Well, we got children all the time that skip that crawling phase. Well, how do you make a child crawl? Favorite toy goes in a tube. They'll figure it out, right? You can't walk in that tube. You can't roll in that tube. You got to crawl in that tube. And so that's the way we do it. Perception drives behavior. And most of us try to change our movement behavior without changing the way our body perceives the environments and the obstacles that we call exercise, play, recreation, work. So, second sister comes along, completely different set of movement skills, but they both make walking right at the same time. One crawled forever, one rolled, crawled for about 5 minutes, got through the stage, but did it enough to do it good and moved on. Then, a few years back, I don't know if you guys remember, but the NFL was locked out. I do a lot of work with the NFL in the spring. You leave a redneck at home in the spring, get another kid. So I think 21, 18, 4. Stuff happens. Okay, we'll move on from that. That helped me really look at the top-notch physical therapists and strength coaches and chiropractors. I mean, we work with all disciplines because as far as I'm concerned, I was in a tribe called physical therapy, but I left that tribe. I'm in a tribe called movement now, and if you're doing the movement stuff, you're in the tribe. Greg Rose, the co-director of the Titleist Performance Institute's chiropractor. We're best buddies. He lectures with us, we lecture with him, and he makes a statement all the time. If you're getting treated right now and you can tell the difference between a chiropractor and a physical therapist, they're not as good as they could be because we're merging the best of everything that makes you move and trying to protect ourselves from our own BS. And one of the best ways we can do that is first move well, then move often. What is well? That's where I started my work. If I can define well, then that works. Because all this is natural selection. Environments like organisms that are willing to adapt and respond. If you specialize too much, stuff's going to change and you're going to get left behind. If you don't specialize enough to survive the immediate things here, you're going to get left behind too. So there's an interplay, a relationship between every organism and every environment. You've got to perceive and receive the information, you've got to respond to it. If you deplete your energy resources in one direction, you're not going to be left in the other. So I'm going to take this around, but I've got to start philosophical first. About 1980, we didn't do well. Exercise was how much can you do? How often are you exercising? And when I was getting my undergrad degree in exercise science, we looked at exercise 3 different ways: frequency, intensity, and duration, right? How often are you doing it? How intense are you doing it? And when you do it, how long can you do it? And that's all we cared about. So most runners are so busy focusing on their quantified life, their Fitbit, their heart rate, their VO2, their body comp, that you can hear them running 50 yards away. Can you hear an Indian running 50 yards away? Can you hear an Aboriginal hunter-gatherer running 50 yards away? No, because they wouldn't be hunting if you could hear them. And if you've worked with some martial artists and seen how they can go from a stance to a sprint, barely making any noise, that's integrity. That's respecting the environment, right? But if you're so tuned in to your iPod that you can't hear the boom, boom, boom. How many people in here have noise-canceling earbuds? Well, I fly a lot, so I got some. Put them in, don't plug it into anything, hit the noise-canceling and go for a walk or a run. And it'll sound like somebody's dropping a jackhammer. And that's you dropping a jackhammer because of the lack of integrity that you hit the ground with. So that beats up your fascial system, your muscular system, your tendons, and your joints. So I think there should be a minimum quality because you could take move out of this and it would almost work in any profession for a skill set you're trying to develop. Hit a minimum level of competency before you start asking me about quantities or what's your minimum level of quality. A lot of fitness professionals this summer, a lot of people are still trying to get their head around that. I'm like, all right, let me make it different. How many single people I got in the audience? There we go. I can have every one of you a date in 5 minutes. As long as standards don't matter. Right? You just assumed I was going to match you with Mr. or Mrs. Right. No, I'm not. I'm just going to put you with somebody. Because we didn't talk about the minimum standards that are making this being single so difficult right now. But that's the whole point. When anybody asks a question about exercise, the subject of the sentence is not the exercise. It's who is receiving it. That's the subject of the sentence. And yet we will have long blogs about, should I front squat or back squat? Should I cycle if I have knee problems or just swim? What should I do? We don't know who you are. You're asking a random question for a specific problem. Guess what kind of answer you're going to get? Unbelievably random and probably not too applicable. You've got to move well enough to respond. Your response is based on that perception and that behavior. Act on feedback loops, minimizing failure. Almost every reason we're doing our kids a disservice right now in athletics is because mom and dad and many coaches are operating on a success strategy. How do I mold this kid into the next blank? Wrong. It's not the way you do it. At every level of movement, at every level of physical development, at every level of social development, at every level of teamwork or whatever, just don't fail. And if you don't fail long enough, you will be in position to make the moves up when you can. But I need your movement health at a non-failure. Then I need your movement literacy, your ability to read and write movement patterns. I'm not asking you how fit you are yet. I'm saying, can you go all the way down on this knee and come up? That's called a lunge. Can you do it on this knee? Can you go all the way down and come all the way up on both feet? That's called a squat. Can you cover the developmental movement patterns that got you here? And if you can't, don't you think that's the starting point? Or do you think your training heart rate's the starting point? Move often enough to adapt. Here's the thing that blows a lot of people away. If I introduce you to a completely new activity, in the first 3 to 4, some people will say 5 or 6 weeks of that new activity, your strength graph looks like that, and then it looks like that. It sort of tapers off. Your greatest gains are always going to be in the introduction of a new movement pattern. And yet in that 3 to 4 weeks, your body changes not. Your bone density hasn't changed yet. Your fascia hasn't had a chance to remodel. Your muscles aren't doing anything different and they're no bigger, and you probably haven't even lost that much fat. What happened? Your timing, your coordination, your processing, your perception, and your behaviors got better. And just in that amount of time, you have refined your software because your body is not going to allocate precious resources, calories, right? I'm going to hold on to that Guinness as long as I can. I'm not going to, right? Your body's not going to allocate its precious resources to making new tissue or developing your legs and removing tissue from your upper body because now you're a runner. It's not going to move, it's not going to reorganize anything architecturally until it maximizes software first. Isn't that when you should probably upgrade a device? When the software hits the limits of that the hardware can hold. And that's when the body gets a ping and your bones get a little denser and your arches get a little higher and your core gets a little tighter and your shoulders go back and your lung volume goes up, not because your lungs got bigger. That's not good lung volume. That's real good lung volume. It's not hard to see. But your body won't start morphing and changing and adapting until your software is optimized. But what if you learned how to rock climb or cycle or paddle a canoe or do some mixed martial arts or just do spin class with a really bad movement pattern? The spin, you're 4 rows back, the spin teacher can't see your knee caved in like that. You're not doing it well, but you're doing it often. You just hit save on a pretty shitty document. Right? Because when we impose stress and load and variety and complexity on a movement pattern, your body assumes, oh, we've done all we can do at software, let's start morphing hardware. Is a bone spur the result of that, maybe? How about a stress fracture? There's only 3 things walking around this planet that get stress fractures. Human beings, racehorses, and greyhounds or racing dogs. And if we would leave the horses alone and let the dogs do what they want, they wouldn't get stress fractures. but we push them into places they wouldn't otherwise go in nature, and we do the same thing to ourselves. And so we don't recognize stress fractures in nature except in people who like quantities more than qualities. Nothing in nature breaks that rule, not one. And we've lost our standard of authentic human movement. Where do we find it again? Well, we got a lot of people trying to eat like we ate 10,000 years ago, called the paleo diet. If you're not going to move like they did, don't worry about eating like they do. Principle 2. Now, you go into healthcare, the Hippocratic Oath says do no harm, because in your enthusiasm to help somebody through this challenging episode in their life, you can often remove one problem and create two. If we are going to interact with your movement life, if I'm going to see you, my first order of business is to protect you from things that could make you worse in your immediate future. And if that means you're a runner and I got to pull you off running, I am not saying you don't run for the rest of your life. I want you back. That's where your flow state is. That's keeping you off of Prozac, right? I'm all for that, but not today. You take your BMW to the shop, the mechanic's not going to run along beside you in a school zone while you're running your errands and diagnose your car's problem. They're going to leave it here, you go over there. I almost got to do that with your body. So sometimes we've got to stop a bad behavior or break a bad pattern before I can reinstall a new one. Otherwise, guess which one you're going to run more frequently? The one that's most accessible. So your bad running stride, you need to forget that while I'm opening up your hip mobility and showing you a different way to train your core. And believe it or not, I'm going to have you doing cardio the whole time, but it's going to look a lot more like a Versa climber or a jump rope until you learn to hit the ground with integrity and store the energy like you're supposed to. Okay? A lot of people don't like to hear that. They just rather put a strap on this knee, use ibuprofen as a breakfast food, don't let me interfere with your run. All right? And as Mark Twain said, denial ain't just a river in Egypt. So, to be clear, I gotta protect you before I correct you. Now, when I'm doing corrective exercise, that's different because I magnify your mistakes. I put you in a situation where it's absolutely obvious that your mistake is magnified. I did this a long time ago with people who would get in the squat rack and they would shift all the way over here and you try to, hey, get back up in the middle. The language of movement is not written in words and pictures, so trying to coach somebody with visual pictures and words has to go through 3 filters of their own personality before it gets to where it needs to be. If I know somebody is squatting offline, I get one of those slick little slide boards and put the little parachute booties on both feet and say squat down, and this foot just spins out. And I'm like, squat without that spinning out. That's really hard, I gotta concentrate. Good, next week you won't have to. But right now, that squat right there without your foot spinning out, you don't have the slide board, put on your slickest socks, go find a hardwood floor, try to squat down with your feet pointing forward. Whichever one's spinning out is the one you're pushing off of in the squat rack. We could easily fix that, but I'm not gonna fix it while you got 300 pounds on your back, okay? And we don't tune your car when it's running wide open. Cut my hands off. So we don't need to. By the way, of the 3 things I said, protect, correct, or develop, which is training wheels? The training wheels make you a better cyclist? Yeah. Or they'd be using them in the Tour de France. One guy just passes you on the mountain with the training wheel. Got to give me some of those. The training wheels actually don't correct or develop you. They simply protect your child from allowing a mistake to become an accident. That's it. And there's 2 ways to get a kid riding a bike. One is let them worry about propulsion without balance. The other is get them one of those bicycles you see at REI now that have no pedals on them and let them get their balance first. There's no right way. And if you have a wrench, you can take the pedals off of any bike and put them back on when you want to. The point being, all those training wheels do is let your child develop confidence and interact in an activity so they will have the drive to deal with the few falls that are going to happen. Every kid is going to fall with that bike, okay? And that's my job, okay? I'm out there with the first aid kit, first time riding. All right, they're going to go down. We got to get over that. But I think you all understand that those training wheels don't make better bikers. They give them the illusion that they can cycle long before they have the competency to, but we always have the intention of taking these off. Now, if you dial your fitness life back a little bit, we used to walk in a gym with a bunch of machines. Those machines aren't there to help you. They're there to protect you. Sit down and push out. You can't hurt yourself. We tried. We've run every idiot we could find through this seated. You can't hurt yourself, okay? If both your hands are here, you can't even stick this hand in there and let the weight stack come down on it. So no illusions. We don't need to train you by body part. The reason we put you on those lines of equipment is so we don't have to talk to you and interact with you, and you're a rat on a wheel, and you are burning calories, that's right, but you're not gonna do anything outside any better because your biceps got stronger. So many of the things we do in health and fitness simply protect you from getting worse because we just don't have the interest or system to say exactly what you need to do next. Principle 1, do it well before you do it often. Did I say perfect? No, well enough. 2, if we're going to have engineered selection of what opportunities I should expose you to and which ones I should pull you back from and which ones I should amplify until you can read and write them better, that's protect, correct, and develop. If I believe those two things, then I got to create a systematic approach that works even when I leave the room, because if I'm the only one holding those two principles, it's hard to put my name on a sign and 5 people do the same thing. And we've got to have a systematic approach in healthcare with movement, and yet we don't. More about that in a second. Principle 3 guided me to create a systematic group of filters that allow me to use Principle 2 to enable Principle 1. It takes a while to do this. You read books like Simon Sinek, where he's talking about start with why, and you look at some of the major innovations we've got, and it's just a better why statement that sent us to a better how should we do that, and what should be the outcome. And I try to step way, way back out of the movement sciences and say, listen, we're making advancements everywhere else because we get the bullshit out of the way. We get the dogma out of the way. We get the opinions and paradigm shifts out of the way. And oh, it's absolutely clear. And that's the whole point of today's message. It's way more simple than you think. Now, a couple hundred years ago, a martial artist showed a 14-year-old how to break a board with her fist or his fist. That same board would have broken that fist. But under the care of a martial artist, with breath and posture and everything that they did, they're breaking a board. Did that martial artist know anything about the anatomy of the hand or how powerful the tricep was? And did that kid have to put on any weight at all to break that board? No. There's a perfect software programmer right there, a good martial artist, a good dance teacher, a good gymnastics teacher is programming movement software better than we are, unless they focus on success instead of non-failure. If you go for success too early, you're going to hurt somebody. You got to remember, I think we were all really happy to see Peyton Manning go out on top with a Super Bowl. Most of us were, I guess. But you got to realize he's probably the last of the 3 sport athletes we'll ever see. Not only have most 8-year-olds decided on the sport they're going to play at the professional level, they've also decided the position. Everybody knew that your last name like Manning, you're going to end up playing football. But his dad was smart enough to know baseball instills a different set of movement skills and teamwork skills, and so does basketball. Plus, we got to keep this kid busy. So you got a 3-sport athlete right up until the time it's time to get a scholarship. And then you use the scholarship for what it's for, and then you take that and honor it with a professional career. That's my blue sky statement, right? That's the way it ought to be. But if we don't do something right now that's practical and can be implemented anywhere, then really all I'm doing is exposing a problem that we all know we have. All I did was break it down from a series of principles that's based on the way organisms and environments act and the original operating system that you started with. Everything I just said you would think is part of a standard operating process in healthcare, teaching, coaching, and training movement. It's not. I'm here to expose common mistakes in movement programming and tell you sort of how we're trying to fix it. Much of what we're going to cover can apply to you right now, meaning you can vet some of this stuff on your own without a pro standing next to you. Steve realized very quickly that even though he'd met a lot of professionals, none of them were using a clear, logical, standard operating procedure for deductive reasoning of, is this my hardware problem or software problem? Not one of his 17 surgeries was a brain surgery, if I'm correct, right? So nobody questioned your software. Yeah, they only questioned his hardware. And if you got a hammer, if we look at your body with an X-ray or MRI, we can find something wrong. Does that mean that's what's wrong? No. It just means you're not perfect. And I think we're all perfectly aware of that. How do we know they're mistakes? Well, did you know that the #1 risk factor for a future musculoskeletal injury in your life is a previous injury? And the second thing is the severity of the previous injury. I can't do nothing about that. I can't go back in time. But it should make you think a little bit outside of the box. Most of us in here that have been injured enough to have to not play, not train, or stay out of work, also met a healthcare professional that helped us with that. Now, there's only 2 outcomes when those are the first 2 predictors of a future injury. Either every injury leaves you a little bit less than you originally were, or we did not completely serve your rehabilitation needs. Both statements are true. If you have a permanent disability, I should alert you of that before we cease to have a relationship. And if you could potentially get back to where you were before, I must tell you if you're there yet or not. And just because your insurance quit paying or because your low back pain's gone doesn't mean you're functional. See, I have a lot of people, they're pain-free in 3 visits. They still can't do that. They still can't play golf, but they're pain-free. So most people after every injury just get a little bit smaller life. Oh, I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. So as your life gets smaller, you're in the illusion that you think you're functional and you're not. And then all of a sudden you get to go do an extreme weekend and boom, back goes out, foot flares up or something like that. So we are the problem. If you've previously been injured and you've been through a healthcare model and we didn't either alert you to a permanent, long-standing problem or get you back to what you had before, we didn't really do anything but stand there while you were trying to get better in the process. This may be a little bit painful to watch, but I got a backstory for it. This is a biomechanical analysis of a young gymnast doing a squat. Now, we put little markers here, and a computer creates an image of what she's doing, sort of like a moving X-ray, if you will. You got blue lines right here because she's standing on 2 force plates. And the one thing I want you to look at, the blue line is supposed to go through your architecture. That's the stress point, that's the alignment. When the blue line goes outside of your joint, that's shear force, that's rotational torsion. That's basically what happens to your ACL, the anterior cruciate ligament we're all getting ready to hear about because it's football season and we're getting ready to watch Sports Center. And it's getting ready to happen. This girl, a gymnast, blew out her ACL, went through surgery and rehabilitation and was released both by her surgeon and her physical therapist, and actually went back and started competing again and got this biomechanical analysis of her squatting pattern a month or 2 after the entire thing was done. The alarming thing is they did surgery on her left knee. See, it doesn't matter what her name was. It could have been Jennifer or Diane. Her name on the chart was left knee. And the left knee looks damn good. They didn't fix her. They just strengthened her knee after surgery. 4 months after this video was taken, she blew the other knee in the sport she loved. She's part of a female ACL epidemic. It has nothing to do with the way a female is built or hormones or anything else, because those have all been side stories in the news we've tried to use to explain it. We saw this occur when females started playing more field and court sports and were allowed to at the high school level but weren't allocated the same training time as the boys. Oh yeah, you can play softball, basketball, you can run track, do whatever you want. There's no weight room for you. See, we learned that the hard way when we expect these young things out of a male's body. We give them the time in the off-season of training. The sports-minded girls just went from sport to sport to sport, never getting the physical architecture to support the activities they were doing. So if we give them access to play, why don't we give them access to train correctly? We didn't, and we created a problem, and now we're solving it with surgery instead of proactive teaching, coaching, and training. Return to sports rate. 40 to 50% of the people who have that ACL surgery actually return to the original sport at the level they were going. The rest, life changes. But they've also got a 30% chance of re-injury, but it doesn't matter which side, which tells me it's a pattern, not a part, that's causing these knee injuries, and who controls the patterns? We got to reprogram movement. Getting the new cartilage doesn't do anything if the brain doesn't honor the alignment and support, shock absorption, and integrity of the new cartilage. Dysfunctional movement patterns that are habitual rarely change unless specifically addressed. We've got to identify that as not good enough and change it. Her entire support system was looking at the parts. Her doctor, her physical therapist, her parents. Everybody said, hey, we got a new ligament in the knee, all is good. You don't hurt anymore, all is good. Oh, the scar's looking wonderful. Put some more vitamin E on that, all is good. Nobody's watching her move. The whole reason she blew her knee in gymnastics, which is not a contact sport, is because she was landing in valgus collapse. But somebody was just seeing if she could stick her landing, not if she landed with integrity. And those are two different things. A good athlete can stick the landing ugly as hell because they compensate better than us. I got to work with NFL players all through the spring. They compensate better than we do, which is why they get to do what they do. ACL patients of both sexes, on average, control their body weight with a similar level as do 60-year-old healthy controls. That means regardless of where in your life you are, you blow your knee out to the point where you've got to get an ACL reconstruction and the 2, 3, 4, 5 months of rehabilitation that follow that. Even with all that care, you immediately advanced your life and you're moving like a normal 60-year-old. I don't want that for my daughters. I don't want it for your sons. But that's what's going to happen because that's what the statistics say. This is not simply a sports medicine statistic. If you're one of those injured individuals, your trajectory of your entire movement life changed. I'll bring it back around because we got to do stuff with these guys too. It's almost funny to look at injury rates in the NFL because everybody in the NFL is going to get injured and has been injured. It's an activity with a 100% injury rate. But I delivered this statistic at the NFL Combine 2 years ago because we go into the Combine, we're there testing, and one of the greatest things about doing movement screening, what we do at the Combine now, is it sends a positive message down through college. If you're bigger, stronger, and faster, but you gave up movement integrity to get there, we don't want you because you're not going to be here long. Because that's what NFL stands for, right? Not for long. That's what it stands for. Okay. That is the way, I think the 14-15 season in the NFL, that's the distribution of injuries over the entire season over all the teams. We see some clusters here. Ankle, knee, thigh, shoulder. Those are big clusters. Now, we could individually evaluate, do MRIs on all these parts pre-season for everybody. Or we could simply find a movement pattern that confronts every one of those joints in a pattern. Your lunge pattern, a standardized lunge pattern, because when you lunge, that's your deceleration direction change. And that is the number one thing in field and court sports. That's the movement pattern that sort of says, how durable are you? Are you going to be able to hold up to this kind of thing? So that's the movement pattern. So that one movement pattern confronts 777 out of 1,345 of those injuries, 58%. I could have seen that before because if that movement pattern looks ugly on one side, both sides, or causes you pain, you're already in that group and you just don't know it yet. Now, if that causes a problem, I can easily put you on the table and look at the knee, the thigh, the shoulder independently. But if I look at the knee, the thigh, and the shoulder first, I'll never see the pattern because the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. And healthcare has told you if your parts look good, everything else will fall into place. It's the other way around. The Hall of Fame is full of people with pretty bad parts. that were more resourceful with the way they used them, with the way they managed their physical resources. So, here's the good news. Since we can't go back in time and do that, what are the other 3 factors that actually predict your future movement health, the obstacles you're going to have to confront in your movement life? Pain with any movement test, not joint test, but movement test. Do a movement pattern, make sure it's reliable. Did you have pain? If so, you're already hurt, you just don't know it yet because your brain is already avoiding those activities. But what if that is the movement pattern you should be doing? Then we've got to figure out why. Ankle flexibility is showing huge. Absolutely huge. Why? It's the number 1 injury you're going to get in high school athletics that's really, roll your ankle. When the pain goes away, does that mean the ankle is normal? No. And we've been seeing huge things in as many different populations we can find. Fire service, paratroopers, NFL, 14-year-old female soccer players. It's all the way across. If that ankle doesn't move, then don't just think of it mechanically. If that ankle doesn't move, the sensory perception coming up through that ankle is just like water going through a garden hose that you're standing on. I'm not getting as much information from a restricted joint. So the reason we got to do our flexibility, guys, is not so you can have the architecture of a perfect joint. The more information you can give to the processor, the more the processor can do with the information. So having stiffness is unexcusable if there's a way to get around it. So if you've got to start your journey back into movement health, start it with flexibility and realize you're not finished when you get flexible. You're just providing your brain with more sensory information, and now you got to do things well enough to adapt so you can do them often enough. Movement screening and balance testing are the other things that predict, is this going to be a good running season for you? Is this going to be a good Spartan race season for you? Is this going to be a good triathlete season for you? So how do we use the principles of fixed movement? Here they are, but we've got to have those systematic filters we talked about. Well, back in the early days, back in, say, the mid-90s, every one of us saw this coming. We saw these bad patterns, but we all tried to just write new programs to keep that from, we just got to do twice as much core with them. We just need more flexibility work and that'll do it. And yet a surprising statistic came out of the military that said, way back in the 1980s, it's not tightness or weakness that seems to cause greater injuries. It's left-right asymmetry. It's when the sides of the body just don't balance out. And you don't have to be perfectly balanced out. Out here, at skill level, these hands are nothing like each other. But if I can tell which way you swing a golf club or throw a ball by looking at your core, it's gone too deep. You've imbalanced your body to a disadvantage. 10% imbalance we'll accept, and it's actually pretty normal to see. Anything greater than that is probably going to start robbing from your efficiency. I'm not saying you can't do your job. I'm saying it's going to start robbing from your efficiency. Well, all we were doing was trying to write better exercise programs. And I was part of that problem. I was guilty too, right? We're just writing programs. Everybody just do this program, you'll be bulletproof. Here, eat that diet, you'll be bulletproof. It's not the way it goes, because you can't fix anything that you don't fully understand. And I started this off saying we need to read that movement code before we start hacking it, okay? Oh, you got a weak core, so 4,000 crunches from now, you'll be perfect. No, you won't, okay? You'll just be hunched over a little bit more because your abs are so overtrained now you can't stand back up like you need to. We build filters that capture movement patterns below the qualitative standard regardless of program. I've got no bias. I'm certified in Pilates mat work. I'm certified in kettlebells. I'm certified in Olympic weightlifting. I have no bias. I don't care how you train or what exercises you do. If they're working for you, I can measure it. And if they're not, I can measure it. So there's 1,000 different ways to connect you with movement flow, with your thing. You want to surf? I can show you exactly how to warm up, cool down. Surfing might take care of every movement problem you've got. Do it right. Screen it out. Most of the things you love to do, we can keep you fit right there. You've just got to make sure you're moving well going into it, and then it feeds the system, and the system keeps growing. If you're perpetually in an activity that keeps you imbalanced, here's your minimal effective dose of supplementation and cross-training that keeps you balanced out. I respect your time. I want you to play way more than you train, all right? Because when people train, I just don't like the way their faces look. And when people play, their faces just look better, right? There's less cortisol in this face than this face. Okay? So, we got a strength coach, a physical therapist, another physical therapist, and athletic trainer. Danville, Virginia. And if you don't know where that is, and you saw the first season of Moonshiners, that's where that is, okay? We're not near there. We're that zip code, okay? So, liquor comes in a jar where I'm from. Anyway, we had 4 county high schools and a city high school, and we were dissatisfied with how proactive we could be with kids getting injured. So we had nothing to lose because we had no research grant, we had no money coming from a shoe company, we had nothing except an extra hour in the morning before work started. And I'm leading this group, and together we started talking about maybe we should do movement screening. But we're going to do something no one's ever done before. We're going to build all this disadvantage into it to make ourselves better. Malcolm Gladwell talked about it in David and Goliath. Some of the best situations we've ever seen came out of constriction, came out of limited resources. We wanted to capture movement signs before symptoms. Think about that for a minute. The reason we're making progress with cancer and diabetes is early detection, not treatment. How about orthopedics? What do? We wait till your back's hurting, and then we work backward and say, well, I think it's your core, and then he's going to say, well, I think he's got stiff hips, and I'm like, his arches have fallen. We're all right, and we're all wrong, because all 3 of those aren't equally part of what's happening. One is the bottleneck of the situation until we remove it and measure the difference it made, and then we remove the next one and the next one. Signs before symptoms. We do it in almost every other organ system of the body except movement. And we wait till you're hurting, and we walk backward, and you can't deny what we're saying because we're all talking chicken or the egg to you. Okay? We wanted to capture patterns before data points. The patterns speak way louder than the data points. And the worst pattern, that's where we look for data points, right? We wanted nearly anyone to be able to administer the test. The front line of defense isn't my physical therapy office or Greg Rose's chiropractic office. The front line of defense is the athletic trainer at the high school, the science teacher who's coaching softball, right? Your running group leader, your yoga instructor. That's a front line of defense. The drill instructor, the fitness chief at the firehouse. That's who's running this stuff, and that's what we built movement screening for. It must be inexpensive with respect to time, space, energy, and cost, or it won't make it to the high schools. It won't make it to where it's needed. We've been movement screening kids in Rwanda right now. They don't have playgrounds. They don't have shoes. And they actually move better than the kids in our country that have playgrounds and shoes, and coaches and whistles and Fitbits. We must filter for a minimum acceptable level of movement quality, not maximum level, and we must check movement competency before physical capacity. If we can do all those things, I think we'll be right. These are our standard. Now, these are simply tests, but one's a blood pressure cuff and one's an eye chart. And even though they're tests and give us a distribution, all we're really looking for when we do this is, am I going to give you a driver's license or not, right? And it's a screen. If you test legally blind, then we know what to do. We've got to go investigate something. And if you test hypertensive, we've got to figure out why. That's all a screen is for, and that's what a movement screen should do. If you're not hypertensive and you can read the line you're supposed to read, get on with your life. Vision ain't the reason you're not going to be successful, and hypertension isn't the reason you're not going to be successful. And if you score good enough on the movement screen, the reason you're not winning races isn't because of your movement. It might be because of your tactical or technical strategy, but it's not because of your physical presence. Because people with your exact same physical resources are winning. It ain't physical. Following these self-imposed rules, we sort of found a GPS of how you should move. And we got it off the original operating system, these milestones. Now, it doesn't look like this because it's really hard for me to get NFL players to do this. It looks like that. But believe it or not, even though these don't look exactly like exercises we do, each one of those is a squeeze point or a pinch point that says if you don't have the mobility or motor control to cover the pattern, you'll flunk. Each one of these, if it hurts, it's a health problem, not a fitness problem. And if you can't do it, it's a literacy problem, not a capacity problem. You can't even read and write the pattern. Why are you loading it? So we may not load one of those patterns. Your squat could be beautiful, your lunge sucks. You don't get to load your lunge. I don't want to see you hopping around with a split stance, and I sure don't want to see you lugging dumbbells around, because what happens when we load a bad pattern? We hit save on a shitty document. Okay? We don't want to do that. In current levels of athletic testing right now, it's very vogue to run her and jump her off these force plates and see if that knee caves in. But when you run and jump, that's 4 body weights. That's gravity times 4. When you're just standing there squatting, that's gravity times 1 body weight. Why do we fast forward and go right to here? Because if the knee caves here, it's a movement reading and writing problem. And if it caves here as well, that's just magnified with load. If it doesn't cave here, but caves here, we're not fit enough to do the activity. But if it caves at both places, we're not even literate enough to take the loads. Separating those two groups and not seeing them the same way is literally the technology we tapped into. Now, it doesn't take long to fix any of this stuff if you aim better. And I say this all the time. Everybody who goes to sniper school already knows how to shoot. Why are they going to sniper school? To learn how to aim. They're going to hit everything they ever aim at instead of hoping they hit something. Okay? And that's what I think we do in fitness. Oh, your back hurts? Hey, try these exercises. They work for me. Well, unless you're willing to go in their medicine cabinet and dig all that crap out too, I wouldn't take that kind of advice, because all they're doing is you're going to sample yet another thing that may be giving you good feedback and you don't know how to measure it, and it may be giving you horrible feedback and you don't have a reason to stop. We built 3 simple little tools. Technology is going to come behind us and probably improve every one of those. But right now, in about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, we can look at your movement competency, your movement health, and your movement capacity. They're feedback loops that feed each other. If you screen movement and we find you just can't move on one pattern, we set you right up with an exercise that will help you perceive and behave in that pattern better, and we retest it. If you have pain in any of those patterns, we created a medical movement screen because we were sick and tired of letting injury previously be a risk factor for the future. We got to tighten it up on the rehab end, just like we got to tighten it up on the fitness floor. And if you move good enough to learn, let's throw some loads at you and see what direction you want to learn in. Do you want to learn to be more endurance? Do you want to learn to be more strength? Do you want to learn to be more agile? Do you want to learn to be more springy? What is it you want to learn? We can direct you right there and let you know, do you have a physical barrier to skill acquisition? Now, believe it or not, we've been adopted in the NHL Combine, the NFL Combine. We're being used in MLB. Most of the special operations and special forces use what we do. We're not really used in grade school. We're not really used in high school. Some colleges do, some colleges don't. We started at the top not because we wanted to. We know stuff will trickle down. Early adopters will do it first. But it was not made for special populations, because we can use an eye chart throughout your entire lifespan. So I can compare an 8-year-old to an 80-year-old, or I compare an 8-year-old you to an 80-year-old you. We keep switching up movement screens every time you get older. It's okay if you flunk a few more tests, because it's okay if you flunk a few more lines. But if I don't use the same movement standard across your lifespan, I can't tell you which way your life should be going if you ask me a question about movement. I'll know I've done my job when this message goes all the way around the world and comes back to Virginia. And the cool thing was, it did right before I came out here. A girl who'd been dealing with knee pain for 2 years. Her coach had said, go to the clinic, your movement screen sucks. She was scared she was going to get pulled out of sports. 2 visits. She had 2 years of knee pain for no reason. She just wrote that letter. And it's what people think they have to do to move. All right? When animals hurt, they don't move. When babies hurt, they don't move. When we hurt, we still move because we think that's all we're left with. And we know it's good for us to move, okay? If every time you ate broccoli you threw up, I'd say quit eating broccoli for a while. If you want to see authentic movement, just ask a pro, and the pro is not in the black shirt, okay? Here's what I want to do. If we got time, I think as people were coming in the door, we ask a simple question: can you touch your toes? Because we often find a lot of people get stuck in that movement pattern. So I think we ask you, do we have some people in here who can't touch your toes? All right. Is there a medical reason you can't? So you don't have steel rods in your back or anything like that. Good. If you would be willing to volunteer, I would love to see if we can reprogram that really quick. You want to do that? I promise it won't take too long. If it does, maybe I need to do my job better. Who we got? Now, we're going to try to be as scientific as possible. So, how many people we got? What, 2? Okay. I'm going to get both you guys to stand right here and face your accusers. Feet together, touching both at the heel and toe, and just show us your toe touch. That's not bad, all right? And what I want you to do is step back over here. So you didn't make it quite to your toes, and I want each of you using one of these planks. You can go on down that side. And all I want is your toes are up and your heels are down, but everything is still together, okay? Now, they've got to be touching, and you can step on this one. That way it's, all right? Now I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to feel extremely awkward. I'm going to ask you to take your knees apart without taking your feet apart. The only way you're going to be able to do that is to bend and do that. And I'm going to basically slide this between your knees. So just bend your knees as best you can and put that right between. I'll let you do it. Put it right between. Yep. Good. A little more space. Go ahead and bend them. Balance. I got you. Good. Now, here's what we're going to do. I want you to stand up straight and just work out your balance. And this may help you. Squeeze the towel I just gave you and see if it helps you stand up straight a little bit better. Now put your hands over your head and just breathe for a minute. And while your hands are over your head, I want you to do this. When you bend down and touch your toes, I want you to go as far as you can. And when you hit that first bit of tension, crush the towel. When the towel allows you to move a little bit further, you still won't make it to the floor. At that point, cheat and bend your knees. But every time I want you to make it all the way to the board or the floor. So go ahead and do one. On your way down, you're going to get tension. Squeeze the towel, squeeze the towel, squeeze the towel. Now cheat, bend your knees and make it all the way to your toes. Bend your knees. You don't have to hold your knees straight. Good. Come back up. Don't forget to breathe. Look up when you go all the way up and really try to balance. And do it again. Squeeze first, bend your knees second, make it to your toes every time. It's real good to let that air out going down, bring it back in coming up. Work your balance out the whole time. Good. Keep going. Good. We're going to do about 3 or 4 more at your own pace, but I want you to do one thing. You're touching your toes way better than you're standing up straight. So at the very top, if you know your butt's sticking out a little bit and your shoulders are still forward, really try to get as tall as you can. Don't lean backward, just get the top of your head as close to the ceiling as possible. Good. 2 more, each of you. Don't forget that exhale. Good. Cheat at the bottom if you need to, but quit cheating if you don't need to. Squeeze the towel first, bend the knees second. This is your last rep. And what I want you to do before you get off that board is hold your towel and step forward over the board so your heels are up and your toes are down. So you can grab your towel so it doesn't fall. Step across the board and now do the opposite. Heels are up, toes are down, feet are together. Roll up the towel a little bit thicker, put it between your knees, and repeat. Just like the shampoo bottle says. Just repeat. There you go. They're self-started. Make it all the way to the ground, even if you have to bend those knees like it looks like a squat. There you go. Straighten up at the top. Cycle those breaths. Get your breath in sync with your movement. How come martial arts and yoga and Indian clubs are all about 4,000 years old and they never disconnect movement and breath? And we've got to remember to breathe when we move. Breathing was never disconnected from movement. Breathing is what makes yoga work really great. If you find out your hardest movement patterns in yoga are also the ones where you're not breathing. Breathe first, then let the movement unfold. So you're inhaling up, exhaling on the way down. Good. Get those toes every time, even if you got to bend your knees. I like it. Good. You keep going, okay? I'm going to pull him off the board. You keep going. Come on, step off of here. All right? Now, just drop your arms. Don't think about anything. Touch your toes. Just do it. Touch your toes. Good. Okay? Let me see your towel. I got it. Step on off of there. Now, don't think about anything. Just touch your toes. Just do it. There you go. Now, all I did was broke a pattern to make a pattern. Do I have anybody in here who can touch your toes? Just, you can touch your toes? Prove it. I don't believe you. I think everybody's dishonest and will prove it otherwise. There you go. Okay, you're not lying. Now, I'm going to get you to do one thing for me. Come right over here. Put your heels and buttocks up against the wall. Keep your feet together just like they did, but attempt that toe touch one more time. Right. And that's exactly what they felt like, because we've seen people up here that are here. Watch this. If I take all of this body weight and put it forward without putting that backward, then I actually turn on my hamstrings to keep me from breaking my nose. And that's why you didn't go all the way down, because you would fall forward. What I did is made you face uphill, make you face downhill. I was scrambling the vestibular information, the inner ear information with your proprioceptive information, with your breathing and everything. And the toe touch had been a repeated pattern that wasn't complete, and that's why you couldn't touch your toes. And so all we did is made you balance while you were stretching. Because most people stretch and then do exercise. And it was really hard for you to balance when you were first going off, because you're really stuck to the ground. But earth changes. Feet have to change. So what I did is threw you into a much more adaptable environment down there and forced you to do it. You're breathing and you're also touching your toes every time. Whereas before, every time you tried, you failed. I had you touching your toes every time, and we were just taking away your training wheels. The first squeeze told you to engage the front. But when you engage the front, what happens? You automatically short-circuited the back. So the tight hamstrings, the glutes, and the low back, they shut down when you fire the front. It's the way the body stays efficient. When I'm doing a bicep curl, my triceps turn off. Why waste energy? So we had the first cue that pinged the front, shut down the back. The second cue says, go ahead. It's more important to touch your toes than it is to lock your knees back, but each one of you bent your knees less every time. Now, if you want to maintain that toe touch, do that one drill before you leave the house in the morning, before you go to bed at night. And that's it. And after about a week, you're probably going to adopt that pattern, and you'll probably start moving and dressing and putting on your shoes in a slightly different way, and you may not lose it even if you don't do the drill. But do it consistently, twice a day. It doesn't take nearly as long as I took it. I was just running my mouth. You could have done it in 3 reps. But that's the whole point. We sync your breath, we make you be adaptable, and we break a fixed pattern, and you've already touched your toes, and so have you. And all I had to do was get the old pattern out of the way first. So I like to do that trick, and you guys were well on your way to doing it. You could probably got there without me, because you made an improvement, but we've seen improvements go way further. So we wouldn't try to write a new movement pattern or change your movement life without first breaking some of the old patterns. So that's a guy with dyslexia, programming brains. That's all I got. Thank you.
So I work with a lot of people with herniated disc, and so can I use the FNS to do that same movement?
If they have a herniated disc in their past, but it's not currently exacerbated, because anytime the movement screen produces pain, we actually say we've got enough information, so we go into a lighter load movement screen, and I can see how that disc is interacting. So the minute a movement causes pain, we immediately switch the filter, and we come over here and do what I call a lighter duty movement screen to see which movement patterns are painful and which ones are dysfunctional. Let me tell you a story about the way low back architecture. So whether it's arthritis or herniated disc, we often see this. That hurts my back, or that hurts my back. And then I'll say, well, turn. Yeah, that's a little uncomfortable. That's a little uncomfortable. Stand on your left foot. Oh, good. Stand on your right foot. Does it hurt to stand on your right foot? No. Now, every movement pattern you saw before, forward, backward, rotation, rotation, was painful, right? But which one was dysfunctional? We don't attack it. We never work on your dysfunctional patterns. We become so absorbed, I guess because of our empathy or whatever, we become so absorbed in your painful patterns that we forget you've got a lot of other patterns that are broken, probably contributing to the problem, but which patterns hurt? Because that's what you want me to do. You want me to make the ones that hurt go away. But if I do a democratic representation of your medical movement, we get 4 categories. Is that normal? Touching your toes is normal. But what if I can touch my toes but it hurts? I'm actually functional, yet painful. All right? What if I can't make it to my toes? If it's painful, I'm dysfunctional and painful. And that's the big problem in healthcare. Am I moving poorly because I'm in pain, or am I in pain because I'm moving poorly? Can't answer that question. So what we do is we would run you through 6 or 7 different movement patterns, see which ones provoke symptoms and which ones don't, but yet are still dysfunctional. And believe it or not, we have much greater ability to change your movement architecture by removing your dysfunction. Because I can't make your back worse working on your balance. I can make your back worse by forcing patterns that don't want to go yet. So very many times when we go for a medical movement screen, which is a little bit different than the functional movement screen, people think, oh, I just got to bang through these patterns. Well, that's how you got the herniated disc in the first place, going into a pattern where you didn't have integrity, and that whole pain was just a signal saying disharmony, disharmony, don't go any further. So if you've got pain, we can easily map out the pain behavior and dysfunctional behavior and have you on your corrective exercises right away. The movement screen is if you just can't do the patterns, but it's not by pain. So if the disc is causing pain, different movement screen. If it's in your history, but it's no longer causing pain, then we can probably see what's left and what needs to be done just by doing with that. But the minute one of those patterns causes pain, we do a different test and sample it a different way because your category just changed from a movement fitness problem to a movement health problem. Is that helpful? Mm-hmm. The other thing about disc is it neurologically involved, meaning a disc that we see on MRI is not a problem if we don't see the nerve problem associated with it. If you've just got a little bulge somewhere, but I can't tell it from any other test, we keep an eye on it, but there's a good chance that, I don't know, you get a little on the other side of 30, the disc actually dries up anyway. So not many people are herniating disc after 35 anyway. They're getting arthritis after 35. The disc herniation window is between about 25 and 35 when the disc is still very hydrated.
So do you think that movement issues or muscle issues are primarily caused by activities that we do, like sports, or more by posture or gentle activities that we do for longer periods of time every day?
I definitely think our lifestyle and our movement habits are an equal contributor. I think the reason that the sports and the activities compound things is not only because we go from pretty much a sedentary life to a, all-out weekend warrior mentality, but the message that we're getting in fitness right now is just push through it, work through it. And I think in our culture for about the past 30 years, we confuse discomfort with pain. We hear no pain, no gain, right? If it hurts in your muscles, push on through it. If it hurts in your joints, you're probably going to blow something out. And so that's a first perspective difference. But, working out, being physically active, having a very robust and active lifestyle means you're a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. The chair's not quite as soft, you're sitting on a stability ball. But it's funny how we go completely from comfort to pain. And yet our ancestors and even babies use discomfort to say, oh, maybe I should adopt a different behavior. So what's the first thing to happen when we see the whole minimalist running thing come around? All right, I'm running 10 Ks in shoes that thick. Hey, barefoot running's cool. Take off your shoes, shin splints, plantar fasciitis, and I just cut my toe off on a rock, right? That's not the point. These are people who actually followed a fitness fad and didn't grow their self into that situation. So I think a lot of the things we do in fitness, there's no filter to keep us out. I mean, if you want to show up to a kettlebell boot camp on the beach Sunday morning, you can. And I'll show you all the weird, wacky stuff we do with kettlebells, not vetting your movement, not vetting your metabolic capacity, not vetting your shoulders, not vetting your grip strength, not even asking you if you wake up with a stiff neck every now and then. So I think the access to fitness has become so competitive that we'll say anything to get your ass in the door and get you to pay us some money, and we'll promise you anything without proactively screening and assigning you the dosage of fitness you need. And so, you know, I tell people, let's do the minimum checklist first. Are you covering 6 to 7 hours of sleep? Are you covering your nutrition? Are you covering your protein? Are you covering your hydration? Are you waking up with pain? Are you dealing with discomfort? And then what are the activities you're doing? And are you really exercising in a robust way with your movements, or are you sort of just doing the one thing? I just wrote an article called Movement Food. We're all on this whole food kick, meaning if you eat correctly, you should be able to minimize your supplementation unless you've got an absorption problem. Well, if you're having fun in your life and you're out there and you're active and you're always doing something, but you don't have a formal exercise program, there's a lot to be said that I may see less movement problems in you than somebody who's dogmatically pursuing this regimented fitness goal without even matching their self to the program. So they're both problems, and I can tell you which one it is with the testing. Meaning, if you're asking me, is it organism or environment? I can easily tell you if you're broken as far as you're receiving signals and behaving correctly. I can tell that in about 30 minutes of testing, maybe even less than that. Or are you just doing things in your environment that aren't pointing you in the right direction? They're just consistently breaking you down. You think it's you, it's not. You stuck yourself in an environment you don't need to be in.
What can we do to be our own coaches and detect broken patterns we may have?
I think it was in 2003 I published a book called Athletic Body and Balance. And it's the other book that you mentioned, I wrote it for you. Meaning if you don't want to see anybody and if you want to work through this on your own, there's a way you can movement screen yourself. There's a way you can confront that. And there probably is about a 50 to 60% play you can resolve that on your own. My buddy Kelly Starrett has an amazing website, Mobility Watt, self-corrective tools. Pete Agoscu there's a lot of self-correction out there. The big problem is, are you trying to fix something that's painful or dysfunctional? Because if it's painful, there's something that happens with pain. Pain is almost like trying to program a computer with a virus on board. You're better off just not even to mess with it because you're going to make things worse. And what we've studied is we've actually created pain where there wasn't pain. We can inject saline in little joints in your back and have you do stuff. And what we find out is if you're in pain, when you move, your responses to movement are inconsistent and unpredictable. That's not a good learning platform. So if you're trying to fix a painful problem, it's going to be much more difficult for you than if you're just trying to fix a movement problem. So if you've got a stiff lower back and it just gets tight, but you don't have a pain issue, then it's going to be much easier to fix that on your own. If you're in a pain issue, it's going to be hard for you to learn how to do anything different because that pain signal interrupts anything that could be positive or good feedback learning. So if it's pain driven, I'm not saying you can't do it on your own, but it's probably a habit or a pattern that's been there so long, we need to put you through some filters to catch it. If it's just a movement issue, you should easily be able to work through it on your own. The only problem is you got to be patient. All right. So the number one thing people want to do in their fitness program is they feel so guilty for being in a sedentary society that you just feel like an extra 30 minutes of sweat is going to somehow undo sitting on your ass most of the day, and it won't. So it's better to exercise intelligently. And it's amazing where when people just get so beat up that they just do some Tai Chi for a month or yoga on the beach for a month and they come back to it and they're bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been simply because they rebalance themselves. But if it's a true pain issue and you haven't had resolution with it, I would say the best approach, get tested or evaluated periodically by a professional and fix it on your own. Because a good professional can tell you what self-help to consume and which one not to consume. So I don't need to count your reps, but I do need to point you in the right direction if you're not getting there on your own. So I think sometimes training and coaching is much better done by periodic assessment and letting you work it out on your own with some good advice than me standing over you, giving you words in your ear, thinking that's going to reprogram your movement. So I think it's sometimes better to involve a professional once to get perspective, but then It's better for you and it's more sustainable if you can be a big part of the solution on your own. All right, thank you.